I just recently sat down with Bill Maher. I don't know if you guys saw it or not. If not, I encourage you to look at it. It's a good conversation. Bill Maher is not a Christian, if you don't know that. He's very much not a Christian. He is an atheist, and maybe we'll have some atheists here tonight. And remember, without God, there would be no atheists. Remember that. And I sat down with, it was kind of interesting, and he treated me very well, to his credit. We just dialogued a lot. He was smoking pot the whole time, which may or may not have impacted me. By the way, I've never done marijuana in my life. I encourage you not to do it. Every time, my whole life, I've talked against marijuana about how it makes you not as sharp as you could be. Totally true. By the way, 100% right. Be very careful if you use pot if you go on a podcast with Bill Maher. I actually didn't do it, but that secondhand high might be a real thing. Anyway, we talked a lot about not just Christianity, which again, this is coming after Easter, but what I wish we would have spent more time on is the importance for a society to have an agreed upon moral structure. That if you do not have a religious basis, specifically a Christian one, for your society, something else is going to replace it. And this is where the political meets the spiritual and the political meets the religious. When you become less religious, which this generation is, Gen Z is becoming less and less religious than their parents' generation, then you have a gaping-sized hole in your heart, and something must fill it. And out of the lack of Christianity is where we get wokeism. Understand that it's easy to attack wokeism, this idea that men can give birth, and all this nonsense that I'm sure we'll have some wonderful people talk about tonight. Maybe not. It's easy to say, well, Charlie, separation of church and state, we could talk about that tonight. Of course, there should be some separation, some distinction. But do we have separation of morality and state? And when you no longer have a bedrock upon agreed moral structure for your society, then people are going to be in moral confusion. And that is when you start to see widespread transgenderism for our youth, or men and female sports, because if you do not have an agreed upon thing of what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is evil, what is just, what is unjust, what is holy, what is profane. And so when you see something as asinine, as this idea that biological men should be able to compete in female sports. 890 medals, by the way, have been stolen from women because biological men decided to play in that sport, and we have to accommodate that. And this is a massive problem that is an outgrowth of the death of Christianity. What happens when a society gets too secular? Now, why does that matter to everyone in this room? It should break you out of your comfort zone to know that it actually does impact you and your children and your grandchildren if a society becomes less religious, if a society becomes less Christian, if a society becomes less grounded to our foundational roots. Be very careful what will actually replace it. And so as we start to see many in the younger generation say, I have no religious affiliation, they're actually lying to you. They're saying that they have no traditional religious affiliation. Something is their God. They are worshiping something. And to worship is what you are aiming at. But if you say, well, I'm not religious, I just want to aim at whatever I want to aim at, ooh, be very careful. What does that mean? Does that mean you're going to be the God of the flesh, the God of trying to get as drunk as I possibly can? And just a little bit of a warning, that is a miserable way to live. You know plenty of people probably that are in that cycle, that endless downturn, that down spiral of, I'm just going to do whatever the flesh tells me to do whenever I want to do it. Be very cautious with that. Instead, we believe a better way to live as conservatives and of Christians is one that we want to glorify God in everything that we do, in all that we do. And that includes, by the way, political matters. So you might be saying, Charlie, how does this inform your politics? Well, the Western tradition is what we are trying to fight for. The Western tradition is one that recognizes universal human equality. So think about how fundamental this is. You cannot get to this idea that all humans are created equal without a belief in a divine. If you just have reason and you believe in atheism, you cannot resolutely and objectively say that murder is wrong. You could say murder might hurt people, you could say murder might not feel good, but you can't say murder is wrong because you have to eventually appeal to a moral standard above you. And so we see this playing out in so many different dimensions of the West, and my call to all of you that are Christians or center-right or conservatives, understand the consequences of where this leads. At first, it will just be wokeism and secularism. It will be the craziest ideas imaginable. Because the woke movement, whatever it ends up calling itself in the future, it mimics religious maxims. It will have, whether it be the worship of nature or earth worshiping, or the cult of anti-racism, or this idea that the religion of scientism, remember we went through that entire thing that you must trust the experts and trust the scientists at all point. At some level, we as human beings desire to be connected to something greater. My contention is there's nothing greater than actually being connected to what built this place in the first place. And we open it up for liberals or leftists or atheists. You tell us what ultimate authority should be. Now, politically, we believe the Constitution should be ultimate authority. But out of the Constitution are all biblical truths. These are things that we find in the Bible. All men being created equal, that you have a right to free expression, that you have a right to be able to worship your Creator, that we're not going to do it by force, but you have to do it with your own agency. These ideas were grown out of the biblical worldview that many, many people take for granted.